I think with Sally Pilot, we can start at the table, begin the story, them already sitting down, and there are students talking about how she's a weirdo, she doesn't fit in, she pretends that she can talk to animals, and all her friends are weird. They've all got issues and problems, and why is she hanging out with a bunch of losers? And she's pathetic. So then you've got to explain that not only can she talk to animals, but she can also understand everything that any student, every student from multiple planets, multiple cultures, and it doesn't really matter. She understands instantly what they're saying without having to translate. It's part of the gift that she was inherited with, and what she's trying to do at the beginning of the story is simply turn off all those voices, and she's training herself to have this volume down, but also to be able to focus in on a person and listen to that one person and cancel out everybody else around them. So a specific person, she can read their body language and what they're saying and whatever language they're speaking. So from there, it's best to go back to how she got her superpowers and realizing that she had disappeared for 5 years. So the friends that she had then are all gone. They're all graduated. They're all gone. They're all pilots, navigators and pilots elsewhere. They're gone. They're long gone. They think she's dead. They all think she's dead, so no problem. So then you explain that in the future, 2600, whatever, the year of Atari, everybody, as part of their training for their job, regardless, has to sit a license to either pilot a spaceship or navigate a spaceship or specific topics, doing their job in very low gravity, or their job, regardless of what it is, involves traveling from planet to planet to do their service. Most jobs. So that's the big thing. And with the Space Cadet Academy, they themselves are an elite training school, and they only get the best. They only graduate the top of the top, the cream of the crop. And so the people that graduate from this particular Space Cadet Academy are very, very highly paid. Very, very highly paid. Their schools are just over and above all the other training schools throughout the galaxy. And so 5 years ago, she was with the group of friends that she had back then. And I'm going to scrap this whole idea about using a compass and navigating star systems by using trees. It just doesn't make sense anymore. But anyhow, so we'll redo the story. She's just playing with her friends, and the challenge of the day is who can climb the highest tree, who can climb the highest, way up top. We're talking about 15, 20 foot tall trees. These are humongous, big, tough trees, and nobody's ever climbed to the top of this one particular tree. It's just impossible. And for some reason, Sally today, she managed to find a good foothold that she'd never noticed it before, even. Like, it just wasn't there. And with this one foothold, she got almost to the top of the tree. And everybody's staring at her. You know, she's like done the impossible. And when she gets right up to the top, she reaches up and the branch doesn't break. It basically wiggles so fast she loses the grip on it. So this branch is self-aware, and it's not wanting to be touched. So it just chucks her away, and she falls 20 foot down to the ground. And of course, in the old story, it was a trap door, but in the new story, it looks like grass. There's no difference between it and the grass around it. She just crashes straight through and disappears. And everybody's jumping up and down on the spot where she fell through, and they can't do it. They even try and climb the tree a bit and try to jump off the tree, and nothing happens. That's it. You know, there's a search, the whole Space Cadet Academy, the rescue team goes searching for her. And there's nothing. There's no sign of her at all. They even tried digging in this thing that she fell through. But unfortunately, it had turned back into a normal part of the planet. So the dude that puts her in a cage, he does that. He makes that hole happen every few years. His reason is just he gets a kick out of it. He has no intention of giving them the superpowers. He doesn't even. Yes, he does. He knows he's giving them superpowers, but he's benevolent. He gets a kick out of harming these students. And even though he does that a lot, not all students activate their superpowers because of his abuse. So what he does, when she falls through the hole, he reaches in to the cave and he grabs her and he sticks her in the cage, bird cage, a man size, a large bird cage with barbed wire all over it and everything. And he says, you know, you're never going to leave that. You're never getting out of that. You're there forever. You're going to be stuck there for the rest of your life. Nothing you will do will ever get you free of this cage. It's yours. It's your cage and it's yours forever. And he flicks like this. Flick. And he flicks a bit of magic at her. And this magic invigorates latent superpowers. And she's so traumatized at the moment that she doesn't notice that at all. And she's there for a few days, you know, and he's throwing literally nuts at her and chucking water into the cage, and she's just living on enough to survive. But then she starts to get this weird thought that she could turn into a bird or a fish or a snake. And she's debating for a half a day. She's thinking, which one would I rather be? If I was a bird, I'd be too big to get through the bars. If I was a snake, then I could slither out through that bar there where the barbed wire is not attached properly. And of course she's like, why am I having these weird thoughts? Why am I having these thoughts even? That's not even possible. It can't be done. It's impossible. And so, ow, my shoulder is so, ow, so gone. How come using the mouse of my right hand for 3 days pulls a muscle in my left shoulder? What the hell? So every time she thinks about becoming a fish or a bird or a cat or a snake or whatever, little aura surrounds her body. And she doesn't notice this until like maybe a week or two later. She's calming down. She's like, I got to get out of here. This is crazy. I've got to get out of here. I'm not going to be here for the rest of my life. And so she chooses the snake because I know it's a long way to the ground, but if she can quickly snake and then rapidly bird, it's her intention. And so while he's asleep in the cabin, she practices bird, snake, bird, snake, bird, snake, snake, bird, snake, bird, snake, bird, snake, bird, rapidly. And one night, just after midnight, she goes, okay, this is it. This time I'm going to do it for real. I'm out of here. Goodbye. So she snake birds. And the second that she snake birds, he's out there with a shotgun. And it is the middle of the night. But he's firing in all directions, just hoping to whack her, knock her out of the sky. And so rapidly she changes from she changes from a sparrow to an eagle, because she just wanted to get out of there fast. And so she circles around and lands on the top of a tree in his world. And she turns into an ant, and she's looking at him, and he can't do anything. He can't see a bird. He's run out of bullets. He's had his fun. He doesn't really kill the students. He torments them. And the ones that don't transform into their superpowers, he will take them to another world. They'll still never go back to the Space Cadet Academy, which is why so many students have been reported missing. But he'll take them. And what he does, though, this is the gross part, he transformed them into hideous animals that are just so scary that people hunt them down. And so they're not realizing that they're hunting and capturing a student. They see the chupacabra, not the student. And so that's a really sad story. But luckily she is out of there. Now, she's flying around for days. She's flying around for days. There's no way back to her world. There's no matter how far she flies, no matter how far she swims in the ocean as a whale or a shark or a whale shark, she just doesn't. There's just no way back to her world. And the only thing she can think of is, okay, let's go back to the cabin and let's find a tree that looks like the one I fell down from back in my world. And he is there, he's waiting. He knows it's the only way back to her world. And so she literally tries being an ant or a mosquito, just something tiny as, but he can still notice. So this is where the story diverts away from the canon. Canon. She turns into a puff of smoke and she floats up to the top of the tree. And he climbs up after her. She's up there, but he can't find her at all. She becomes oxygen, basically, literally. She becomes the wind. She becomes the wind. And he's not aware that a superpower like that even can exist. So he's hunting for ants or mosquitoes, bugs of all kinds of sorts. And he's frustrated. This is something new. This is something different. This is something he wasn't expecting. So, wow. He's kind of proud of himself because he may have pushed one of the students further than he's ever pushed before. And he climbs down and he goes back to bed and he literally shuts the door of the cabin and locks himself inside. I don't know, because he's given up. He's been defeated. You know, take a bow. You've been defeated. 4 minutes in the microwave, perfect. Really stings when it's really, really hot. So then she's changes back to a human. She is a humanoid. And she just dives off the top of the tree like you're diving into a swimming pool. She dives and stretches out her arms and she crashes through that fake hole in the ground and she's back in her world. But first of all, the biggest problem, as soon as she gets back to her world, she can hear all the animals, all the crickets and the birds and every thing, every animal. She can understand what they're talking about. They're communicating with each other. It doesn't matter what language a dog speaks or a cat speaks. They speak in cat. Pardon me. She can understand it all. And because it's all the animals, the cows, the sheep, the birds, the cats, the dogs, the ants, the rats, everybody, everything. She just gets so overwhelmed and so much, the noise level is so loud. She spends 2 or 3 days just quieting down all those voices. She's just trying to turn the volume right down. And she's able to survive because she becomes a fish and she'll swim in and quickly turn back into a humanoid and grab the fish and cook it for lunch. Where did she get the matches from? She can become fire. Wow. This is a superhero with powers that are beyond what's even the all the great magicians in existence have been able to perform, not perform, but to cast. And so she gets closer to the school, but again, she can hear every single teacher, every student, every nurse, every doctor, every dentist, everybody on the school property, from the principal down to the girls and boys in the nursery, speaking baby. She can understand the whole lot. And it's just, again, it's just too loud. It's too loud. It's too loud. Far too loud. So she does it again. She tunes her mind to turn the volume down of all the students, all the people, the principal, the headmasters, whatever. And finally, after a couple of weeks, she's able to get back to Space Cadet Academy. And she walks up to her, what was her teacher back then 5 years ago. And she says, "Hi, how many classes have I missed?" And she tells her, "You've been gone for 5 years. Are you okay? Where have you been?" And of course, there's nothing really she can say that they're going to believe. So she just kind of tells them that she walked into a mist and came straight back. And even as weird as that sounds, they actually believe that story because it's happened to other students. There's been rumours of this happening through Space Cadet Academy for the last 500 years. And so, bad news, you've been away for 5 years, all your friends have graduated. If you want to start training again here, you got to rejoin the class in 3 months' time. We're going to start the new year, and you can re-enroll and we can do the classes that you were doing back then, do them all over again. And so she's sitting in the library studying, which becomes completely pointless. She realizes, not that she wants to, she wasn't even trying, but she realizes she can read all the teacher's thoughts. She knows the questions that are going to be asked in the tests, and she knows the answers for the next 5 years of school. She knows what the questions will be and what the answers are going to be. So she doesn't have to do any study. But she loves being around people. And she's on the search for other people who have been through similar experiences her. And she's noticed that these people that have had encounters vaguely like she had, none of them have fallen through the hole, but they've had these weird encounters, and they're all outcasts. The majority of the students just reject them and call them weirdos and that, because they have powers which everybody's afraid of. So they belittle them. And so she doesn't show up for classes anymore. She's out there practicing becoming a fish or a snake or a spider or a bird or a cat or a dog, whatever. Pardon me. Swimming training, flying training, that sort of thing. And so she graduates. And this is where the story begins. So she searches out the most boring, mundane trader that she could find. And it turns out to be this guy twice her age who just trades in clothing and jewellery. Very, very limited. The reason he does that is because to him it's a search for the most beautiful gowns, the most beautiful jewellery, and hitting the jackpot, finding something obscure that he could buy for nothing, next to nothing, and sell it for 100,000 times what he paid for it. Because he has this dream of buying a bigger ship so he can visit more planets. But his life isn't anything other than just trading clothing and jewellery. He doesn't want to have any fun. He doesn't want to go on any adventures. Nothing. So she chooses him. And every time that they land on the next planet, he has a week to buy and sell his goods before they move on. She spends that time looking for something. She doesn't understand yet what her powers are for. So she goes hunting, she listens, people having issues with tax and boring stuff and limits of trade and I don't know, whatever, and the thug police, and it's gone cold already. And nothing until I get to 2 or 3 months into the job. There's a group of people trapped in a building that's collapsed, and she snakes in, and this is the first time she discovers she can put a shield around all these people. So no matter what catches fire, what falls on them, they're okay. So she pulls them out, literally by wrapping a rope around the whole lot of them and pulling them. This rope comes from inside of her body, wraps around them and drags them out. And stuff like this continues to happen for the next year or two, and then one day the trader, he just sits her down and goes, look, I'm not stupid. I know what's going on. Every planet that we've been to in the last 12 months, something amazing has happened. And I know it can't be a coincidence that it's only the planets that you and I visit. And she's like, well, okay. I can either open you up to a whole new world, or you can just keep being this boring, mundane trader that you are. And he goes, oh no. My whole goal in life is to get this super starship, so I can travel into these worlds that have jewelry and clothing that's beyond imagination, that you only hear about in stories. And so she confides in him, and he's basically already figured all that out anyway. So where you end the story, part one, where you end part one, is she introduces him to a new trade that he could, if he chose to. He doesn't have to, but if he chose to, he could add this one particular trade to his itinerary. And she opens up the drawer, and it's full of cups and spoons and cigarette lighters and junk. Just junk. It doesn't even have to be from Earth. It could be from other planets. And he looks at all this junk, and it's just like boring, boring. I mean, I'm not going to make any money through that. Then what she does is she sprinkles some of her power into a pair of glasses that she gives him, and he puts those glasses on. And now this is where we introduce the concept of the different levels of magic. So Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Red is the weakest. Red is the weakest magic power, and violet, purple, mauve, whatever, is the strongest magic. And so part one ends with like she's aware that there are people that wish to purchase magical items, not that they are magic, because she still thinks she's the only one in the whole galaxy that has these powers. And so they begin to trade in clothing and jewelry. Some of the jewelry is actually magical, and all these inane magical items, and they make quite a good living off it. Then we get to the king that keeps a certain group of people locked away in his dungeons, and he wants them all dead. His way of taking over the kingdom is to not slaughter the people that were there originally, but to just chuck them in his dungeons, and they would get all these gross infections and all this stuff happens. So she just walks straight up to the king. She could rip the king to shreds, literally, pull his arms off, but she grabs the dungeon. This is with her power, her surround shield thing, and she lifts the dungeon up into the throne room, and there are hundreds and hundreds of these creatures that are now freed, and she just looks him straight in the eye and says, don't ever do that. Wow, that sounds a bit lame. It's like she just looks at him and walks off. That's it. That's where it ends. She just looks at this king, stares him in the eye, and just walks away. And the king gets all his troops out to capture not just those creatures, but to capture her and the trader. And she just blasts the troopers away, blows them, just knocks them all down, 10-pin bowling just knocks them all down. And they just take off in the spaceship. So it ends, part one ends with the ship just flying away, ready for the next adventure. And part two is where she gets introduced to the Council of Magi, the Legion of Magicians. There are three levels of magicians. Number one is like Mr. Norris. Sorry. My favourite book of all time. Norrell. Doctor Strange and Mr. Norrell. They're a fake. So number one, just street magicians. They've got no magic in them. They scam people out of money. They're scum. Which is very similar to, it's not just Mr. Norrell, it's this other book I'm reading. Weird. So level 2 is people that have similar, apart from the smoke and the fire and stuff, they have similar powers to what Sally has at the moment. And they're cool. They're very well respected and they do a lot of good work. The third level is what I'm going to call the police magi, or the magi police, where they examine or research crimes done with magic. So she's a type 3, but she doesn't know it yet. She doesn't know. She was placed in the nursery of a Space Cadet Academy as a baby. Nobody knows who her parents were, so she's going to find out who her parents were and how they died, and the big monster of the story is going to be introduced, like the darkness or the blackness or this thing of deep depression. Just it's going to be introduced, and by the end of book 3 she's going to fight this thing and totally kick its ass. But you know, she doesn't even know it exists anymore. She doesn't know it killed her parents and blah blah blah. And so we'll end it with, I know I've already ended it, but we'll end it with she's teaching the computer on the spaceship, to detect magic on each planet. While she's doing that, she gets a message in her head to go to Dagobah, to go to this planet that's like 10 light years away. And she has to come as soon as she can. But why? Let's find out.